Hello and welcome. I am Astrothane. Today we are going to do a particularly deep dive into the mundane astrological chart of modern day China, starting on when modern China was really born, officially Mao's speech, 1949, October 1st at 3 p.m. For those of you who are unaware, mundane astrology is essentially the same thing as looking at the astrological chart of an individual, their natal chart, but the houses and the aspects and everything mean different things in the context of an entire nation. We are going to cover basically all of the major astrological aspects of what makes China tick, so we can really understand from a sort of collective metaphysical level what is going on with China, from how it functions as a collective, what they feel about the rest of the world, and their evolutionary path forward, so we can see the general direction that China is going to be going once we're done with this trade war. Because that's honestly why I'm doing this, is that people really don't understand how significant this trade war is and how it will alter the geopolitical landscape irrevocably and bring us into a new economic order, however it decides to transpire. Let's get right into it, starting with how China projects itself out into the world. The ascendant, the first house. We see the ascendant in Aquarius rising. Straight away, this means China is destined to project an image of being progressive, independent, focused on collective ideals, the whole better future for mankind type of thing. That Aquarian archetype, humanitarian, forward-thinking, that's the face it shows the world. But underneath, there's a certain detachment, a bit impersonal, and a deep unspoken desire for recognition, to be seen as innovative, a leader. So, this forward push exists alongside a more reserved emotional core. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, the planet of sudden changes, chaos, and disruption. We must expect unexpected shifts in the national mood, priorities, even the whole direction sometimes. Now, this is crucial. Uranus is in Cancer and is in the 6th house. This placement is profoundly significant, speaking volumes about inherent stability. Uranus ruling the ascendant means instability, a rebellious streak, fundamental to the national character. Its placement in Cancer tells us these sudden changes, these urges for independence, are rooted deeply in emotion, Cancerian themes of homeland, tradition, and the collective past. And the 6th house puts all this volatile energy right into public health, the workforce, the military, and the police. Upheaval in those areas isn't random. It's tied to this deep emotional core, this need for autonomy. Anticipate sudden labor unrest, unexpected public health crises, such as, the pandemic, surprising issues within the armed forces. They aren't isolated incidents. They reflect these deep national feelings and history. Adding to this Aquarian theme, the moon is also in Aquarius, right there in the 1st house. That's a double dose reinforcing that Aquarian energy. The moon represents the public mood. With the moon also in Aquarius in the 1st, it confirms the public sentiment is inherently changeable, capable of detachment, yes, but also strongly pulled towards collective ideals, progressive ideas, but unstable, very easily influenced. That's the other side of it, instability. It means the public's feelings are completely tied up with the nation's self-image, suggesting a real sensitivity to how the world perceives it. The public is acutely invested in that projected image, processing collective emotions, national anxiety, anger will not be straightforward. You will see suppression or, alternatively, sudden massive national reactions. The ascendant has aspects too, a trine to the sun, and that conjunction with the moon we just discussed. The trine to the sun is harmonious. It shows a basic alignment, a natural support between the public image, populace, the ascendant, and the leadership's core identity and aims, the sun. That brings some underlying stability, but the moon conjunction with the ascendant, as stated, intensifies that link between public mood and the national identity massively. It means huge popular support if things align, but also extreme sensitivity and volatility if they don't. The populace is the national image in a very real sense with that conjunction. So let's shift now to the government, the leadership, the global reputation. That's the midheaven, the 10th house. It's in Scorpio. Scorpio midheaven immediately tells us the government's character is intense, extremely secretive, incredibly determined to succeed, to maintain absolute control. Scorpion traits are hidden power, research, espionage, definitely a focus on hidden power dynamics, intelligence gathering, strategic maneuvering, and dealing with profound national issues like debt, resources, major transformations. They project capability, confidence, but masking something more ruthless, manipulation. That's the Scorpio signature. That outward strength absolutely conceals ruthlessness, strategic manipulation to get what it wants. The ruler of Scorpio, Pluto, is in Leo in the 7th house. This tells us where the government's power really comes from. Pluto in Leo, 7th house, reveals the power comes from displays of authority, national pride, quite often dramatic actions that Leo style, played out on the international stage, the 7th house of relationships and open enemies. So, foreign policy is the main stage for power plays. It's the arena for power struggles, transformations. That Leo drive for dominance gets channeled into international relations, leading inevitably to intense conflicts, complex power dynamics with other countries. Relationships aren't superficial. They're about deep control, manipulation, state-driven transformations. International relations is an exercise in power projection. So, with the midheaven, we have Venus conjunct the midheaven and a sextile to Jupiter, but a square to Pluto itself. These add layers. The Venus conjunction means diplomacy, arts, national resources are intimately tied to the government's image and goals, using culture or economics for political ends. The reputation heavily relies on diplomacy and wealth, but Venus is in Scorpio here, suggesting intense manipulative diplomacy, using wealth for control. It ties back to that Scorpio intensity. The Jupiter sextile indicates an ease, an opportunity, and a natural ability to achieve expansion or project authority through government action. It's sort of like a kind of luck. But Jupiter in Capricorn in the 12th house, which represents hidden structures and limitations. So this luck actually stems from a behind-the-scenes type of action. Things involving state control, operating secretly. It's calculated advantage, not just good fortune. But we also have a midheaven, very challenging square to Pluto. This is fundamental, unavoidable tension between the government's public goals and reputation, the midheaven, and its underlying power source, the transformative drive, Pluto, in foreign relations. Internal power struggles manifest where the quest for international power backfires. The pursuit of power abroad will undermine the state's aims or public image. Actions taken in partnerships or conflicts inherently risk damaging the national reputation in a big way. A really complex dynamic. So let's move on to key planetary influences, with the sun first, the leader. It's in Libra, 9th house. Sun in Libra means the leadership inherently strives for balance, harmony, and diplomacy, the Libran drive. The 9th house placement focuses on ideology, foreign affairs, international law, higher thought. So projecting fairness internationally, justifying actions legally or philosophically is the tendency. Expect idealistic foreign policies, sometimes impractical, persuading through grand ideals of justice and equity. It seems very focused on the international image of China. But there are tough aspects here too. A square to Uranus, that conjunction with Neptune, and the opposition to the North Node. Let's start with Sun square Uranus. Sun in Libra square Uranus in Cancer in the 6th. This is major ongoing friction. It's the leadership's desire for balance clashing directly with that unstable, rebellious nature of the populace or workforce we talked about. Leadership initiatives get suddenly disrupted by public unrest, health issues, military or labor problems. It suggests a leadership style that seems eccentric, even authoritarian. Well, definitely authoritarian, inevitably clashing with the inherent national instability. Well-laid plans hit unexpected resistance. So the Sun conjunct Neptune, also in the 9th house, this fuses the leader's identity directly with idealism, but also deception, propaganda, especially around foreign ideology. Think socialist or communist ideals deeply embedded in the leadership's self-concept and approach. Think strong ideological commitment, lacking practicality, or skillful use of propaganda internationally. Both are definite, highly susceptible to illusions, or very effective at using narrative, especially abroad. The ideology is the leader's identity in many ways, a powerful mix. And the Sun opposite the North Node, the Sun opposite the North Node means the leader's path directly conflicts with the nation's collective destiny, its evolutionary direction. Leadership will find itself unintentionally working against the deeper karmic lessons for the nation, leading to indecisions or actions that actually hold the nation back. That's the reality, a fundamental tension between where the leader wants to go and where the nation needs to go. These internal tensions are really stacking up. Let's look at Mercury. Communication, trade, also in Libra in 9th house, conjunct Neptune and the Sun. So national communication, media, commerce, emphasize diplomacy, balance, fairness, again and again, focused on foreign affairs, ideology, higher education, and law. Skilled international negotiation, projecting a balanced view. You can definitely expect that. But also communication that's a bit shallow, avoids difficult details, overly theoretical, and a very strong emphasis on controlling the narrative around ideology and foreign perspectives. A carefully, meticulously crafted message. Mercury conjuncting Neptune and imposing the North Node and Lilith in the 3rd house, more complexity is indeed added here. Mercury-Neptune conjunction in the 9th blurs the line between fact and idealism, or even misinformation and propaganda in foreign matters and ideology. Lack of clarity, highly ideological media or education is the norm. Difficulty separating objective truth from the preferred narrative becomes a constant challenge. It reinforces what we saw with the Sun and Neptune and the opposition to the Node and Lilith. Mercury opposite the Node and Lilith pits the official communication, the narrative, against the nation's true path and its repressed shadow, its scandals, Lilith. The official story struggles against reality, tries to suppress uncomfortable truths. Intellectual justifications will be used to counter necessary development or just hide inconvenient facts. A real battle between the message and the underlying reality or destiny. Just an incredibly intricate web of lies. Venus, diplomacy, resources in Scorpio 10th house. This means diplomacy, resources, arts, alliances are all intense, secretive, and controlling in Scorpio. Being in the 10th, they're directly tied to the government, power, and reputation. Diplomacy is a tool of power. Resources are tightly controlled. Diplomacy is used strategically, manipulatively. Resources are firmly held by the state. Expect a powerful projection of national values or culture, magnetically almost, yes, but controlling, all for political gain. Relationships aren't just goodwill, they're strategic power plays. And Venus squares Mars and Pluto, which are both conjunct in the 7th house. Significant tension, massive amounts of tension. In fact, Venus squares Mars means a fundamental clash between diplomatic efforts, Venus, and military and assertive actions, Mars. Diplomatic attempts are undermined by aggression. Resources are strained by military spending. Internal conflict between diplomats and the military is guaranteed. Impulsive action, Mars. Damage relationships or financial stability, Venus. A constant push and pull. And the Venus squares Pluto, even more intense conflict between diplomacy, resources, and reputation, Venus, and the deep drive for power in relationships, Pluto in the 7th. It suggests power struggles, jealousy, betrayals, and alliance. The government's use of resources or diplomacy will violently clash with hidden international power plays, risking major financial or diplomatic crises. It's a volatile mix involving core government function and deep international power dynamics, potent conflicting energies to the maximum. Now, let's look at Mars. Military conflict in Leo, 7th house. This is clear. The military and the assertive drive, Mars, is proud, dramatic, wants attention, that Leo energy, and its focus is squarely on foreign relations, both partners and rivals. So aggressive internationally, wanting military recognition. Yes, a dominant stance, a real desire for military respect on the world stage, even though it doesn't really have it. Conflicts will flare up from national pride or a need to dominate others. Actions will be bold, reckless, driven by that need for global respect. That Leo energy needing to be seen is a major force here. And Mars conjunct Pluto in the same house. It's immense. Mars conjunct Pluto in the 7th house is exceptionally potent. It fuses military/assertive power, Mars, with deep, transformative, ruthless power, Pluto, all directed outward internationally. Capacity for decisive, forceful, destructive action in foreign policy is undeniable. A willingness to use force to achieve transformative goals involving manipulation, obsession with outcomes. A real might makes right approach signifies huge military power, or at least a focus wielding of power in relationships, a very powerful and sobering aspect. Jupiter, all about expansion, beliefs in Capricorn, 12th house. National optimism, expansionism, wealth, laws, beliefs, Jupiter are expressed conservatively with limits, Capricorn, and operate behind the scenes in the 12th house. Slow, strategic expansion, state control, wealth concentrated in hidden areas. Benefits come from secret activities, but there's also the risk of self-undoing through rigid or hidden policies related to growth or law. Things happen out of the public view. Controlled expansion is not always transparent. And Jupiter squares the North Node and Lilith. This pits the established systems of law, ideology, expansion drives, Jupiter, against the nation's true path, North Node, and its hidden issues and scandals, Lilith. Existing structures hinder progress or clash with uncomfortable truths. Potential for hypocrisy is everywhere. Legal or financial structures work against the collective good or cover up problems. A conflict between the system and the underlying reality or necessary evolution. The chart keeps showing us these deep internal conflicts. Saturn, about structures and limitations. In Virgo, the 8th house, national structures, discipline, challenges. Saturn manifest in a focus on detail, criticism, and efficiency. Virgo, and this is in the 8th house, shared resources, national debt, financial ties with other nations, and death rates. So rigidity, bureaucracy, challenges with debt or shared resources are expected. Bureaucratic hurdles, long-term issues managing debt, financial obligations, a critical, restrictive approach to financial partnerships or dealing with national crises. Virgo here also points to health crises linked to shared resources or debt. A very pragmatic, restrictive approach to finance and shared resources. So now let's go on to Cancer, 6th house. It means sudden changes, innovation, rebellion, that's Uranus, are driven by emotional needs, security concerns, history, Cancer, and this impacts the workforce, public health, the military, and police. That's the 6th house. So sudden strikes from deep grievances, unexpected health issues linked to national sensitivities, tech disruptions driven by security fears, all highly possible according to this placement. An unconventional, disruptive approach to health and work, often fueled by these underlying Cancerian emotional currents and the Aquarian need for autonomy. That Aquarian innovation expressed through a more emotional and reactive filter. Neptune in Libra, 9th house, ideals, deception, national ideals, spirituality, and also deception, Neptune, are expressed through balanced diplomacy, Libra, focused on foreign ideology, higher law in the 9th house. Strong projection of idealistic principles internationally like peace and fairness. Expect that type of projection from them, but also vulnerability to vagueness, illusion, or using propaganda to justify ideology or foreign policy. Confusion or deception in international legal matters or relationships supposedly based on shared ideals is guaranteed. Carefully constructed idealism hiding other realities. And finally, Pluto in Leo, 7th house. We mentioned it as the midheaven ruler, but its own influence is very worth re-emphasizing here. Pluto in Leo, 7th, on its own, powerfully underlines the deep power dynamics, the potential for transformation, destruction, and regeneration, all expressed through assertive, dominating plays, Leo, in foreign relationship, partners, conflicts in the 7th house. Intense power struggles drive to dominate alliances, relationships as theaters for transformation. It confirms that foreign policy is the key arena for the nation's deepest power urges and its transformative capacity to play out forcefully. A really intense astrological picture here with this Pluto, Leo, conjunct Mars, 7th house thing. It's pretty nuts. Let's look at the karmic path of hidden factors. The nodes, Lilith and Chiron. North node in Aries, 3rd. South node in Libra, 9th. The nodal axis is really revealing here with where China is going and what it's doing now. The South node in Libra shows the ingrained habits, the comfort zone for China, relying heavily on diplomacy, seeking balance, prioritizing abstract ideologies and foreign relations and really grand principles. The established way of operating on the world stage. But the North node in Aries in the 3rd shows the necessary growth direction, developing independence, self-assertion, courage, a more direct, factual communication style, especially with neighbors, in immediate trade and local matters. So a required shift from the big diplomatic stage to a more direct, assertive, regional action. That's the core challenge, moving from relying on compromise and ideology, Libra in the 9th, towards asserting needs directly, communicating clearly and locally, Aries in the 3rd. There's an inherent struggle to be direct, preferring diplomatic channels or justifications. The karmic need is self-reliance, clear regional communication. That tension between diplomacy and direct action seems central. Lilith in Aries in the third house is like a hidden shadow. Lilith here connects the repressed shadow, scandals, taboo subjects to impulsive, aggressive Aries, communication, and issues with neighbors, education, and transport. Third house. Suppressed anger in communications, scandals about media or border disputes, potential for that is guaranteed. A risk of blind, uncontrolled force erupting in those immediate local areas. Things swept under the rug will explode outwards. Underlying volatility in those immediate spheres. There's going to be war. To what degree and with whom? That's something we're going to get into in another video, but China is going to start some shit, as they say. Probably with Taiwan. India might get wrapped into it. Who knows? But there is going to be some pretty gnarly escalation of aggression towards China's neighbors, probably within our lifetime. So Chiron is in Sagittarius in the 11th house. The persistent wound. Chiron in Sagittarius in the 11th points to a deep, enduring wound related to belief systems and ideology. The search for meaning, Sagittarius, and it manifests in alliances, legislature, national hopes, and societal groups, the 11th house. A crisis of faith, feeling like an outsider, disillusionment with collective goals or allies, stemming from an inability to fully realize utopian visions, leading to repeated disappointment in alliances or within its own societal structures. A persistent ache around ideals versus reality in the collective sphere. That's sphere, not spear. That's talking about, their whole really traumatic past with communism, because it was probably one of the most awful things that's ever happened to any country ever. So let's sum up what we've talked about. What are the key takeaways about China's inherent nature and trajectory? We see a nation projecting progressive collectivism, but internally grappling with emotional volatility tied to its past. A government fundamentally driven by intense control and a relentless pursuit of global power, often using manipulation. Leadership striving for diplomatic balance internationally, but facing inherent domestic clashes and deeply tied to deceptive ideologies. And that powerful, ruthless assertion on the world stage is absolutely important it's just probably one of the most important things about this whole chart I've been reading. A major driving force clashing with diplomacy, straining resources. The evolutionary path demands more direct self-assertion, but that's constantly challenged by ingrained habits and communicative opacity. And underlying it all are the hidden tensions, local volatility, and the persistent wound around ideology and collective goals. I've highlighted some striking configurations: that Mars-Pluto conjunction in the 7th, the Sun-Uranus tension, Mercury-Neptune with the nodes. It's an undeniable portrait of celestial forces reflecting the patterns of reality. These aren't just like suggestions, they're fundamental energetic patterns. So this was the first video that I've decided to do on a deep dive into a nation of China. And the reason why I'm choosing China now, because China is on the verge of some pretty big changes. The next video I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be talking about the transits through China's natal chart and speaking about what we can really expect from this current trade war that's happening, because America and Trump are really using effectively what is the nuclear option against China. And it's really what the whole trade war was about, was to get back at China for what it's been doing to the world economy. And that is doing some serious damage to China, and it's going to also do damage to the United States and the larger world economy as a whole, and that the entire economic landscape of the world is going to be completely different after this is done and over. But what I think is going to happen based off what I see is it's going to push China kind of into a corner, and it's going to lash out. Part of it's its karmic destiny, from what I can see from these nodes, is China finally taking the steps to invade Taiwan. And among other things, I mean, they're not exactly on best terms with the neighbors that are around them. They all sort of just tolerate them. India and them aren't on good terms. It's going to be pretty nuts. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be like a world war type event, but it's definitely going to be a major regional conflict, sort of something like what we're seeing in Ukraine. So let me know what you think down below. Let me know if you have any questions on anything. This is really the first time. It took me a long time to put all this information together. And I'm going to eventually do this for the United States. And then I'm going to try to do a synastry chart with China and the United States to see how things are going to tick. I don't know if that's going to be too much information, but I'm really curious about what you all think. And let me know if you found anything useful from this. And if you're interested in working with me, you can contact me on my website down below. I do work on individuals, businesses, custom readings on many different subjects and things like that. I'm even available on retainer for people that are constantly looking for basically the most precise alternative intuitive information that they could possibly find. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.